Hi, I'm Luca Dell'Anna, and today I wanted to talk about ergodicity and in particular show you a concrete example of why redistribution and diversification are extremely important, not just for risk management, but also for grabbing upsides. Let's start with a very simple example of a basketball gamble which draws from the famous farmer's paradox. So imagine that we're doing this game, I give you a basketball, you shoot it in the hoop, and if you hit, you double your money, and if you miss, you halve your money. So you can see here on the top left, you start with $100. Let's say, for example, that the first shot you hit, and you double the money to $200, and then the next shot you miss, and you halve the money back to $100. Now let's see what would happen in a second scenario in which you're playing together with a friend of yours, and after every shot, after you double or half your money, what happens is that you and your friend, you pull your money together and split it 50-50. So let's say that you both start with $100, and then there is the third shot, you hit and your friend misses. So you double your money to $200, and your friend halves his money to $50. Then you pull together your money and it's $250, and each of you gets $125. Next shot, you miss and your friend hits. So you halve your money from $125 to $62, and your friend hits it, so he doubles his money from $125 to $250. Then you pull your money together, it's $312.50, and then you split it half and you get $156. So now notice how, compared to the initial scenario, you made one hit and your miss, same thing, but your money in the initial scenario went back to $100, and now in this scenario, your money grew from $100 to $156. So you augmented your money even though you still only made one hit and one miss, so you double and you halved. So this is the power of redistribution. And notice that you didn't redistribute with someone who's better than you, you redistributed with someone who still did 50% of their shot successfully, just as you. So redistribution works not just when you're redistributing with someone who's better than you, but also if you're redistributing with someone who's just as good as you, or even a bit worse, when there are mechanics in which you double or half your money, like that, this kind of multiplicative dynamics. So this is the importance of redistribution. Now, this was an abstract gamble. Let's see how it works in real life with stocks. And in particular, I will make an example which might be very relevant for those of you who work in tech, and maybe they're paid with stock options, and therefore a big chunk of your network is concentrated in the stock of a single company. Maybe a very performing company, but still a concentrated stock. And we will see whether it's a good idea to keep all your net worth in a concentrated stock, or if it's better to diversify. So here I will present you a very simple scenario where you have an asset, so the stock of your company. Let's say that it's a good asset, it grows yearly by 15%, it's relatively volatile. And what happens is that here, with this spreadsheet, I just generated some random returns based on these initial conditions, 15% average yearly return and variance of 0.4. And I've used this random generation function of the spreadsheet where I can keep generating random returns, and we will see how your net worth evolves over time. So here in the left column, you can see the returns which are generated by the Excel spreadsheet. And on the right side, we can see how in each scenario your net worth evolves. In this case, I put a period of 50 years. So each time I choose to randomly generate numbers, in this case by selecting a random cell and hitting delete, So each time I generate random returns based on the initial condition of 15% average yearly returns and the variance. And you can see on the right side how your wealth evolves. So in this case, first year we got bad luck, minus 3%, and your wealth went from 100 to 67, and then it evolves. And here on top, I compute the average returns. So in this case, in this scenario, randomly generated, you got still average return of 14%, not bad. Now we compare it with a second scenario in which the alternative investment to keeping everything in your company is a diversified portfolio of stocks whose average yearly returns is 10%, so lower than the scenario in which you have concentrated investments in a high-performing company, and the variance is lower. So here again, I'm generating random numbers, and you can see the randomly generated returns here. And here we can compare how your wealth evolves. Two scenarios. The first one here in column F, you keep all your money in the high-performing company. And the second scenario, the column G here to the rightmost column, every year you invest half of your money into the high-performing company and half of your money in the diversified portfolio, and then every year you rebalance. So you pull together your wealth and then you divide it 50% into your company and 50% into a portfolio of stocks, and you keep doing it. And we see how the wealth evolves, and we compare here the average returns. So in this case, you got higher average returns if you invested everything in your company. I keep generating random scenarios. In this case, instead, you get better returns if you invested in the portfolio, and so on. Of course, every time I generate different random numbers, you get a different scenario. So what's important is not what happens in a single scenario, but what happens across scenarios. And we do this, for example, I generate 20 random scenarios here. And here you see for each scenario, what's your average return over 50 years if you invest everything in a single company, if you invest, or if you have the strategy in which every year you rebalance 50% in your company and 50% in your portfolio. And as you can see, each scenario we have mixed returns. In this case, for example, scenario 2, you got higher returns concentrating your wealth. Scenario number 3, you got higher returns diversifying. Scenario number 9, you can see that your company almost went bankrupt. Very bad scenario. And here you can see in the bottom line the average of the 20 scenarios. So in this case, with these randomly generated numbers, you can see that we got better returns on average by investing in by having the redistribution strategy. What's more important though, we don't really care about the average, but we care about the distribution of scenarios. And you can see it here in this table. So over these 20 randomly generated scenarios, you can see that the best scenario has been if you invested everything in the single company, the concentrated company. But that's the best. If you check at the top decile of scenarios, you can see that already it was better to invest in the diversified and rebalancing strategy. Top 25%, still best in the diversified. Worst 25%, you can see that the concentrated stock even got negative returns. And of course, worst scenario, you can see the worst scenario, if you kept everything in your company, can be that you lose all your money here. Whereas the worst scenario in the diversified, the worst of the 20 randomly generated scenarios in the diversified scenario is still positive, only 2% still positive, and the median best to diversify. So this is not investment advice, of course. This model that I showed you is still a very basic model. a very limited number of scenarios. In this case, only 20 scenarios, but I can keep generating new scenarios, new 20 scenarios, new 20 scenarios, and you can see that even if the numbers change, still the average and the median and the distribution, apart from the best, is still beneficial. Top 25%, worst 25%, it's still best to diversify. So this was not to be precise, there are a lot of limits in this model, but it's to show you with some concrete numbers that very often you're better diversifying. Even if you're diversifying with assets which have a lower average returns, just because you're diversifying, you're increasing your average and median returns and in general distribution of returns across scenarios. Thank you very much. This was just a very short overview of one of the applications of Ergodicity, and of course I talk more about Ergodicity on other YouTube videos on my channel, and of course in my book on Ergodicity, which is just called Ergodicity, and you can find it on my website or on Amazon. Thank you very much.